www.theleaguefantasyfootball.wordpress.com. You can also find us on Instagram and Facebook at The League Podcast and on Twitter at The League Pod. All of our podcasts will be posted on SoundCloud at The League Podcast as well.
Are you ready? Oh, I'm ready. Are you ready?
I'm ready. Are you ready?
Let's do this.
Let's do this thing, man.
The League Podcast.
Yeah.
Hey guys, how you doing? You got J&D here with The League Podcast.
Woo! Good morning.
Yeah, good morning, Jay. So today we will be covering some waiver wire ads as well as, quick news, injuries, trades, because trade deadline is coming up. So
Right around the corner.
be
1
ready
week away.
for people to just start getting shipped away like Amari Cooper.
To the Cowboys for a first round pick.
Okay, so what is your first impression, or what do you think? Who won the trade?
Obviously the Raiders, and John Gruden is getting appraised finally for some stuff that he's doing, because he's got now 3 2019 first round picks. That's insane. He's obviously in rebuild mode.
Do you think he's trying to get these picks to trade to be the first pick in the draft, or do you think he's just trying to get
Possibly.
depth?
No, possibly. He probably wants the best overall player in this next draft. I heard Derek Carr's not going anywhere, so it probably won't be a quarterback. But it's pretty interesting to see how much he disliked this team, it seems like, coming into it, because he's just trying to get rid of everybody.
Well, they always had him be John Gruden's camp or whatever, and he's a great player evaluator. So I think they're saying, you do what you want. You evaluate this team, and you get those players that you evaluate in college to bring in, or free agents.
Yeah.
There's going to be a big turnaround on this team,
Oh,
whether
yeah.
good or bad. I mean, it could be – obviously it's going downhill right now, but we'll see if he can build it back up.
Do the turnaround. And quickly onto the Cowboys side, I think that's straight desperation mode for them to go get somebody.
Suck.
A first round pick. We just watched Josh Gordon go to the Patriots for a 5th round pick.
Yeah.
A 5th round pick? And you're talking about an Amari Cooper who just got traded for a first round pick? That is insane. I think Raiders stole that first round pick from them. To get a first round pick, yes, Amari was a first round pick years ago, but to be able to get a compensation of a first round pick back for that seems crazy to me. Dallas, you are scared, and you're just, I think, worried and trying to build some pieces. And I understand. I like it, actually, for a Dak Prescott.
High risk, high reward.
Dak's on our waiver wire, and I'm like, damn, he's kind of interesting now with an Amari Cooper piece to that offense. I kind of like it, but who won the trade? I got Raiders all day.
Yeah, something I saw was Amari Cooper is only 6 months older than Calvin Ridley. Calvin Ridley is a rookie.
Yep.
And he's only 6 months older than Calvin Ridley. So it shows this is like his first year out of college, essentially. He was in college with Calvin Ridley together, So obviously Calvin Ridley wrote it out with the 4 years in college, 5 years in college or whatever. And I don't know, like Amari Cooper's still really young, that if the Cowboys make the commitment and re-sign him and they build that chemistry together,
Oh my gosh.
he could be a solid
He could be
player.
there for life.
Yeah.
He really
So,
could.
We'll see how it goes. He had the potential to be the number one. They thought he could be the number one. They got rid of Michael Crabtree, and
now it's about to be Jordy Nelson City
I
over there.
know,
Like, I am
man.
so mad I got rid of Jordy, because who would have thunk that Jordy's about to be like such a heavy target in that offense?
Yeah, man.
Anyways, another guy that's wants out of their team. We're talking about Patrick Peterson here, who's supposedly
Desperately.
ranting and desperately wants out of Arizona, saying it's that bad, get me out of here. His cousin actually tweeted saying that PP wants to head to New Orleans, so that could potentially be a good fit for him. You're looking at a team that's playoff bound, if not Super Bowl bound. They got a Drew Brees, who's obviously a biggest competitor in the league. That defense needs a corner. Like,
I just don't think they don't have a first round pick, and after seeing Amari go
to be
for
able to
first
get,
round,
it's going to be
PP,
very
he's
hard.
a superstar. So I can only see the Cardinals getting a first round pick for him. So if they're willing to maybe take a future first round pick from the Saints, but
hey, if PP wants out that bad, he might be willing to take a 3rd round pick or something like that. I know that's a lot low. Maybe a 3rd and a 2nd next year. I don't know, but I could see a Patrick Peterson trade happening because of how bad he wants out and how bad teams need that DB help. So that'll be interesting to watch, and who knows when that'll happen with this trade deadline being 1 week away. So as we get closer to that trade deadline, it's gonna start getting crazy. The trade talks are gonna be crazy. It's gonna be a frenzy.
alerts off the yin yang,
So,
especially day of. Oh man,
can't wait to keep you guys updated. But hey, Dill, why don't we get into some injuries now? That'll tie straight into some of these hot waiver wire pickups for today.
Yeah, I think the biggest one is we saw, Marshawn Lynch
Go into IR.
They first said a few weeks, 4 weeks, weren't sure. 8 weeks, done. He's not going to do anything for you.
So let me ask you, with that, I guess we'll get into it with the waiver wires here, but that's a big hit for that offense, especially with now not having Amari Cooper, not having a Marshawn Lynch. They could be tanking. I could see John Gruden possibly
that's what everyone
wanting,
keeps saying,
and exactly, and it could happen. They could end up with the first overall pick and then have 2 more picks that are
Top
pretty
15.
high, top 15, just like the Brown situation last year. So that'll be interesting, and that's sad news for any Marshawn owner because he's been solid up to this point, very solid.
He has been in it, and it's gonna be tough because now it's definitely you're unsure. We're not gonna know who the guy is until weeks to come. But like you said, we'll talk about that in a little bit. Some other news that I don't know if we covered. Did we cover last time? Carlos Hyde getting traded to the Jags.
That's right, to the Jags.
That's some pretty gnarly trade news right there, man.
And that scares the crap out of any Fournette owner.
Yeah.
But it's weird because I think I'm pretty sure they have a bye week coming up.
Yep.
So they're projected to have Fournette come back after that bye week.
Or they play in London, then a bye week.
Yeah. So big game in London. Fournette obviously probably won't even travel for bye week. And then back from bye week, they could be having Fournette and Carlos Hyde, and it just seems kind of odd to me. They'd
and
go
TJ Yeldon, who's been playing so well.
So it just is odd to me. They would try and get Carlos Hyde. I wonder why.
There must be worries about Fournette.
And that's where if you're a Fournette, you're worried. And luckily, I don't own him, so I'm not too worried. But that definitely was a shock, and I think blew a lot of people's minds without a doubt. But back to these injuries, you got another couple running backs who really took a hit. You got a Sony Michel who really looked banged up coming off the field. Yeah. Test came back though and said that it was nothing major, so that's good news. But man, he looked. He couldn't even walk. Yeah. He couldn't even walk on his leg. No pressure, so that was scary. Matt Breida, who's been banged up all year to this point, he came out of the game, and he came out with a statement saying he thinks it would be best if he just rests and takes care of his body, and in turn, that'll help the team in the long run. So I picked up his backup, so I'm kind of hoping he does rest himself. But anyway, that's another major injury, and that San Francisco offense has just been torn apart by injuries.
The running game hasn't been that bad,
Even with that, so I can't wait to talk about that in this waiver wire. But then a couple receivers. Albert Wilson also headed to IR on the Dolphins, and sucks. He coming off a huge game. I think his biggest game of his career.
Man. I mean, he even in the beginning of that game, he was targeting him a ton, and then he went down. So.
Boom, just like that. So that's sad to hear. Hopefully he gets soon better. But Brock Osweiler, he really is stepping up, huh? Interesting.
It's October, man.
October, my favorite month. And then lastly, you had a Kiki Coutier, who's your boy.
Yeah.
My boy. He's so good.
It's very unfortunate, and I'm
nagging hamstring injury, right? So
when you have these fast guys, it just bound for them to pull something. So once again, he's an amazing electric player that in any given week can give you 100 yards, a couple touchdowns, but with that injury, I dropped him in a league because I needed to pick up someone else to play with all these bye weeks coming on. So
yikes.
Definitely tough to get rid of someone like that. But there's a lot of depth in the receiver waiver wire,
Oh, yeah.
So anyways, yeah, he's going to be out. They said this week on Thursday he's not playing, but he could potentially be back the following week. So if someone does drop him, and you have a best spot, pick him up. But
stash and snag.
They're coming up on their bye week as well. So,
So with all these injuries, I got a question for you. You're looking at probably the biggest of the bunch being the Marshawn injury on IR. And the biggest question probably coming into this week is, do I pick up Doug Martin or Jalen Richard? I think one of them has a slight upside. And you tell me, though. What are you thinking? What's your perspective on this situation?
Oh, man. So, I think everyone is going to think the same thing. Jalen Richard catches all the passes. Doug Martin gets all the touchdowns, which I can totally see happening. This could be a complete RBBC. They do fall behind. They do have to throw it a lot. So that's where Jalen Richard, once again, and especially PPR, gets that boost, gets that little bit more than Doug Martin. But Doug Martin, I don't know. He left the Bucs for having a couple of down years, but he's shown that he can be an all-pro in this league.
Absolutely.
Just like Adrian Peterson.
Loads of potential.
Yeah, so he could come in and be hungry and ready to go. They have a good offensive line.
Yeah,
they really do. And it hasn't been the best year for him, but they have solid players there. So I think that if Doug Martin can kind of get going, he could end up being the guy. He's never been known to catch the ball, though. So I think there's going to be value with both these guys. At the end of the day, I think I will go with the Jalen Richard, unless, I'm completely desperate and I'm just looking for that extra little spark on my team, then maybe take the shot on Doug Martin. Cedaroth, I know you're in last place still, and you have that first waiver. I know you're not picking Doug Martin because you drafted him with the first round a few years back and he burned you. So I know you're going with Jalen Richard, but at the end of the day, Jalen Richard is probably who a lot of people are going to prioritize. But don't be surprised if Doug Martin is getting 15 carries a game, 15, 20 carries a game,
Yeah, no, and John Gruden loves him. He
Yeah, he
brought him
does.
there for a reason, so I could see him really leaning on Doug Martin and just focusing on Richard for the pass catching duties.
At the end of the day, I think Jalen Richard, no matter what, is going to have value in PPR leagues. He's going to give you those games, though, where he gives you 5 to 10 points or 15 to 20, And then Doug Martin's going to be your standard, He's going to get those touches, and you're hoping for that touchdown.
Yeah. And quickly, we forgot to mention one guy on injury, talking about backups. LaShawn McCoy. Had a concussion, it looked like, and also when he landed, he twisted his ankle. I don't even know what is wrong with him, but he's banged up to say the very least. So with that injury, I think another hot waiver wire commodity this week is gonna be Chris Ivory.
Definitely, man.
Chris Ivory is it's really tough because that offense is so horrible. So you're going after a guy who is in an offense that is so bad, but Chris Ivory has the potential to touch the ball 20 plus times in this offense. I mean, as soon as LaShawn McCoy came out, he gained 70 some odd yards off 16 touches. So he has that potential. Like we talked about before, he can catch the ball. He caught 3 passes this week. So he's going to come in and have huge potential, but at the same time, LaShawn McCoy struggled in this offense, and struggles in this offense. So it's going to be hard to be able to just be like, all right, Chris Ivory, he's the man.
Chris Ivory is 100% healthy, though. That's the difference.
Exactly, and that was my next point.
McCoy,
He is healthy, and he's running hard. He's looking good. He's getting through the tackles, and they're like I said, he's going to get the usage.
He's been fantasy relevant before on the Jaguars, so it's not like he's just some old hag
Totally.
that you can't depend on.
So I think him filling in, he's going to be a great waiver wire pickup. But the problem is you're only going to be able to have him for X amount of time because LaShawn will come back. I don't know when.
But at the same time, he's so banged up this year.
Yeah.
He potentially could just keep getting more and more hurt where they just sit him.
I'm hoping
or trade him.
I think LaShawn McCoy, well, it's going to be tight. We only have 1 week and he got hurt, so I doubt he'll be traded. But I think that he'll end up being rested for the next 2 to 3 weeks. I'm hoping to where the point he can get healthy enough to come back and be that solid starter every week. But, we'll see. I hope and doubt they would play him being banged up because they need him in the long run, or my guess. Or if they're so bad and they just end up tanking, they might sit him. They might just say, you know what, let's keep you good for next year. So it's going to be interesting to see. And Chris Ivory might just
keep you healthy so we can trade you.
Yeah, Chris Ivory might just be fantasy gold picking up on the waiver wire this week.
Like they say, a league winner.
That's right. I do have a couple other league winners that I can't wait to talk about. But who's your next guy, Dill?
Well, someone that, we mentioned earlier with Carlos Hyde getting traded. If, for some reason, I'm sure he was snagged up in all your leagues, but Nick Chubb, if he did not get snagged up in your league, you have to pick him up.
Let's let everyone know. Dylan changed his fantasy football name to involve Nick Chubb. So I think this is pretty big. This is pretty big. Dylan picked him up last week on the waiver wire and has been on cloud 9 since.
I am on the Chubb train. I am on the Chubb train. I literally dropped Demaryius Thomas straight up for Nick Chubb. I obviously Demaryius Thomas hasn't been great, but it's not like he's been terrible. He's been scoring touchdowns.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. That was a big drop, and you were definitely sitting on eggshells the first half of that Browns game, huh? At first,
yeah,
definitely. But I think you're going to see the usage.
But the fact that they just kept giving him the ball and giving him the ball. I mean, we talk about it every single week. Opportunities is what you want in fantasy. I don't care if you get 20 carries for 20 yards. At least you got the 20 carries,
Yeah.
Hoping for that touchdown as well, which they're going to give him the ball on that goal line, and they're going to feed him. He, in my opinion, if you have him in Dynasty, you are drooling. He could potentially even be a keeper in some leagues, like if I'm on a team like Pop, and he's got nobody except maybe a Sony Michel and Nick Chubb, those guys are potentially worth keeping for long run. You
He
know,
doesn't have Nick Chubb.
I know.
So
I'm just
you're
saying.
planning trades already down.
No, I'm not
the
trading
road.
Nick Chubb. I'm not trading Nick Chubb. I'm holding him for the rest. Have you seen his schedule?
Dylan's extremely happy, and like you said, if he's still owned or not owned out in your leagues, that's insane because
It
this is
is.
a number one running back in an offense that is clearly going to run heavily on him. They just got rid of a guy they brought in for quite a few dollars, so definitely look out for him. I got another running back leading with these injuries. Matt Breida got injured again. He might be related to some sort of X-Men because he just cannot stop scoring or not stop playing. I mean, off these injuries, he just literally all of his injuries he ends up playing. Seems like
He's not, and people have said this throughout the year. He's not built to be that 3-down back, and they're trying to make, but he's so little, he's so small, and I mean he's a good running back, but his body just can't take the hits.
Absolutely.
This next guy though is
so
a stud.
So he played 4 snaps before he came out the entire
One carry.
game, and my boy Raheem Mostert, he came in and did his thing again. I'm super happy to at least have him and picked him up last week, and he's going to be another hot waiver wire commodity this week. He had 22 to 20 snaps, I should say, over Alfred Morris, and he turned 11 touches into 78 yards. Not to mention, that was against the Rams defense, who hasn't been the best at this point, but definitely has a good enough defense to be scary, without a doubt, obviously. This week, guess what they're playing? The Arizona Cardinals, who have been dead last in rushing yards and dead last in rushing touchdowns. So this week, I doubt, like I said, off of what Breida's saying and came out and said, I doubt Breida's going to play. You're looking at Mustard to get 15-plus touches. Yes, he does have that Alfred Morris, who has been playing, I'd say, less than average. He's definitely the person who looks the best in this backfield with
He's
the
a volume
ball.
back, so if Alfred Morris gets those touches, he's bound to do something with it. So I think Alfred Morris is definitely someone else that you can grab and maybe play.
I
but,
don't think you can play. What
I
are you
think there's gonna
talking
be.
about?
I think there's
Hell
gonna be a
no.
split of carries between the two of them.
So with that, I definitely think that Mostert's going to be lead back. He's going to pull away. It's going to be 15 to
He
8.
looks 10 times better than him, but they're both going to get the carries. And what scares me
Definitely,
is
Morris is going to get some touches
Yeah.
with Breida not playing, but Mostert looks like the most significant back, and his upside this week is huge. I would not play Morris one bit. I would play Mostert all day against the Arizona Cardinals. And, it's such a great matchup that, shoot, you could end up having to play a Morris if you're in that sort of position where you have nobody, bye weeks, injuries, all that bad stuff. Mostert, I picked up last week, so he might not even be there on your waiver wires, but if he is, you have to grab him because this guy could be a number one running back this week.
I bet you a lot of people drop Mostert.
Well, not going to
when
lie.
They said, Alfred Morris is not going to be out of this offense.
Yeah, totally. I was worried about that. I actually, coming into this weekend, had some guys on the waiver wire that I was already planning on dropping Mustard for, but then after seeing the game and seeing how the output came, I canceled those real quick because I'm super excited to have this guy rostered up. So, any other running backs you want to touch base on, Dylan? There is, and really quick, there's a guy I talked highly about 2 weeks ago, dropped him last week, Ronald Jones. Ronald Jones is second. Peyton Barber, he had an injury against the Browns, but we don't know what it is yet. It was in the fourth quarter. But Ronald Jones could have the potential to be a decent back because when Peyton Barber came out, Jacquizz Rodgers still handled most of the work, I should say. But Ronald Jones scored his first touchdown in the NFL. Didn't have many carries or didn't have many touches to say that, but he made the most of it. And this is somebody that you could possibly roster if you need to, due to bye weeks or whatever it may be. But someone I do like because he's so young and when he touches the ball, he looks explosive. But I just don't know how they're using him and how they're going to continue to use him with those 3 running backs in that offense.
Yeah, man. And I mean,
but watch out for that Peyton Barber injury. Who knows? Someone could pop up. He could be out for the next week or two, and that's where you could really probably deploy. If any time there is to deploy Ronald Jones, it would be when Peyton Barber's out.
Yeah, and maybe even deeper leagues, Jacquizz Rodgers, PPR. I mean, he's going to catch passes. And last year, he was a 3-down back.
He could realistically be the one if Peyton Barber's out being that 3-down back.
I
and getting
started
almost-
him multiple
I
weeks
remember.
last year.
I
So
remember.
I have faith in the guy. I think he can ball. He's also one of those guys, though, that's really small, like a Breida, that gets hurt all the time because he
Yeah.
can't handle that 3-down load. So I don't know. They'll probably do a split, if anything. But once again, injuries are killing everyone. So if you have Sony Michel, you're looking, what am I doing? You know,
That's right.
Kenyon Barner, who's just been all over the place in this league, can't seem to stick on a team. This might be his opportunity. This
Yeah.
might be his time to shine. Obviously, James White's the guy there, but they're trying to pound it as well, you know. And Sony Michel was getting 20-plus carries a game. So he is definitely someone that you could pick up and maybe even play moving forward, depending on how serious Sony Michel's injury is and how desperate you are at running back.
And he looked decent. He was bouncing around and
He's been
can catch the
he's
ball.
very athletic, you know, and he went to Oregon and he balled out at Oregon. So
Sure.
he came in, everyone thought he was going to be a good player, and he just hasn't been able to stick on a team. I feel like he's never getting an opportunity. That's the biggest thing. An opportunity is everything. Coming off of a 10-carry game in relief of Sony Michel getting hurt. That's not bad to see, you know, 10 carries in relief. So next game, I'm telling you, 15 to 20 carries with possible touchdown. Patriots have a really good offense. They score a lot of points. So
and looking better
those
by
are-
the week.
Yeah, those are the players you want. You want those players in those offenses that are scoring points. So definitely someone that is considerably, could be, if you don't pick him up this week, next week could be the top waiver wire ad of the year if Sony Michel's injury is more serious than we think it is.
Yeah.
So I think that's about it for my running backs. And what about receivers? There's definitely, like I
there's
said, there's a
some-
lot of depth at receiver. So
And some talent. There's
Yeah.
some serious talent out there. I want to quickly touch base on two of my boys, Geronimo Allison and Randall Cobb. Both going to be coming back from injury. Hopefully both playing. But I think Geronimo Allison is someone that you could, like in our league, he's owned. But he's a very, very good buy low candidate because he hasn't played the last few weeks. People are probably pretty desperate for something. So you can maybe dish something for an Allison who... Anybody in that Aaron Rodgers offense you want to own, just like we talked about in the New England Patriots offense.
Yeah.
The team's looking good. They're scoring a lot of points. You're playing with one of the best quarterbacks ever, you know. So just with that potential, it's loads of it. And knowing that these guys like Valdez Scantling and Quantimus St. Brown and whatnot, they're going to be moved down the roster as soon as Cobb and Allison get back into the lineup. So I'm really interested to see what Allison and Cobb can do. I think both are buy low candidates. And if someone happened to drop them because of their injury, snag them up. You're playing in one of the most high-powered offenses in the league. There's going to be potential there. I would grab them. So I just wanted to preach on those two really quick.
And really fast as well, I wanted to touch base on two more receivers because of, you know, a trade. We have Martavius Bryant and Jordy Nelson. You know, we talked about Jordy Nelson being that go-to guy that's going to get those targets. But Martavius Bryant has proven to be a big play guy. You know, that down-the-field stretching guy that Amari Cooper was supposed to be. So he could fill right into that Amari Cooper role and have some big games, you know. I was checking him out, and I mean, his stats haven't been too bad this year. He makes big plays. He catches those deep passes. So Martavius Bryant is someone I'm definitely interested in. And if someone did drop Jordy Nelson, which in a couple of my leagues, he's a free agent. So definitely pick him up. He's going to be that number one guy in that offense. So that's exciting.
Without a doubt.
Old reliable, you know. That's what he is. So Martavius Bryant is more a shot in the dark for maybe deeper leagues, you know. But at the end of the day, he could be one of those guys next week, like Martavius Bryant scores 2 touchdowns, you know.
Yeah.
One of the top guys next week. So one of those guys, if you need a receiver, take a chance on
Well,
him.
and he, not to mention, he played a season high 72% of the snaps last week. That's even with an Amari Cooper around.
Yeah.
So that's just going to even boost his target share. Hopefully he does get those targets, like you said, and he could be fantasy relevant.
Definitely, man. I mean, once again, he's a player that I've started in the past with confidence, and he scored me 20-plus points. So
I miss him on the Steelers. Like,
know, man.
Martavis Bryant was such a hot fantasy commodity. Everybody wanted him at one point because just of his skill, his potential, his
so
speed.
fast. He's
so
so
fast.
tall,
I
long.
cannot believe he's not on the Steelers. I couldn't really.
And maybe that's why they
picture him
they
anywhere
traded
else.
Amari because of their confidence in a Martavius Bryant.
Yeah.
You know, so I mean, at the end of the day, Martavius Bryant could be the guy. You know?
Totally, and weeks from now we could be talking about this guy being one
A
of
league
those
winner.
league winners. Exactly.
Their schedule as well is cake.
Cake.
Is cake. So
Another league winner I want to
Yeah.
dive right into, Dill, is a Traquan Smith, all right? This man is out on most fantasy waiver wires. Another guy I was smart enough to grab last week because of the current situation with Ted Ginn. Ted Ginn, like we've talked about, is now on IR.
Yep.
Traquan Smith is now, no doubt about it, the number 2 clear-cut wide receiver over Meredith. Meredith is coming off 0 targets against the Baltimore Ravens. And mind you, the Baltimore Ravens are not easy. You're talking about a Jimmy Smith, Brandon Carr. These DBs are no joke. But Traquan Smith at least got he got 3 passes for 44 yards. But one of his passes was Tony toe tap down the sideline, huge play, off a horrible pass
He
to
can
say
ball.
the least. I think Drew Brees is getting really comfortable with Traquan Smith. Traquan Smith always also set the record for Drew Brees at home 2 weeks ago. I'm loving with this high-powered offense, what they can do. I really think Traquan Smith can seriously become a league winner for you moving forward. It reminds me of a couple of years ago when Michael Thomas was on the waiver wire in our league, and I picked up Michael Thomas. Not to that extent because Michael Thomas is in a whole nother league, and he was going that number 1 receiver where Traquan is clear-cut that number 2 receiver, but Drew Brees, all I got to say, that is a high-powered offense, and I love everything to do with that receiver that can take it over the top. And he's just so agile, so elusive, and I'm excited to watch him play. And I'm excited to have him on my team. Go grab him if he's out there.
Yeah, I'm definitely jealous that you have my boy Traquan in our keeper league, but thank God I have him in our dynasty league. So he will be this guy, and he's just going to get better and better.
Without a doubt.
And,
Luckily,
for
Michael
years to
Thomas
come.
is still young and got nothing to worry about for many years.
Oh, definitely not, man. But in that offense, number 1 and number 2 eat. It's not just about number 1. And especially when you have someone like Michael Thomas taking that top corner out of the equation, I mean, it makes it even easier situation on a second receiver. But my last receiver I want to talk about today is Courtland Sutton, who all year he's been scoring touchdowns. You know, he just hasn't been getting tons of looks. And with this whole Demaryius Thomas trade rumors, he could potentially be that number 2 receiver on the team, with Emmanuel Sanders being that number 1. Unless Emmanuel Sanders is traded, Sutton can potentially be the number 1 receiver on this offense.
Definitely.
So, he is only rostered in 5% of Yahoo leagues. So a lot of people had him on their team and dropped him, you know. So he's essentially available everywhere. I mean, once again, if you have a Demaryius Thomas or something like that, and you dropped him like my situation, then Courtland Sutton is someone I'm looking at to potentially pick up as well, you know. But, you know, I have Emmanuel Sanders, so the reason I dropped Demaryius is because I don't want 2 of the same receivers on the same team. But, and Courtland Sutton's young, and he's balling.
It just, I think, only works out if one of the 2, Sanders or Demaryius, gets traded. Because you look at his situation, he looks amazing. He's getting decent targets, but not enough. He hasn't passed 10 points once this year in fantasy football. So that I maybe 1 week.
Yeah, I think he has, because he's got
every other week is even with the touchdowns though, it's 9 points, 8 points, because he's just not getting a ton of targets, and they're not very long touchdowns. They're the fades over the top in the red zone. So, but I love Courtland Sutton's potential. I mean, like we've preached about off the air, how incredible he is, and I think his upside is tremendous in that offense, especially with Emmanuel Sanders being on a contract year. Demaryius Thomas looking like he's, only got how many good years left.
Yeah.
He's going to have huge upside.
Definitely. And
so, I got you good on Courtland?
Yeah.
I dropped this guy that I'm going to talk about, but he's coming off a 10-target game. Robbie Anderson. Jets are horrible. I don't want anything to do with any of them. I'm dropping their defense too, even though the defense was pretty good. But Robbie Anderson with the Quincy Enunwa down. Who else got hurt in that offense? I swore another receiver got hurt. Tom not only got hurt, but he got cut.
Yeah.
So Robbie Anderson's potential in this offense is going to be huge. He's going to get the targets. We know he can take the top off any defense. I think he's a great fill-in if you have a bye week. If all these other guys get picked on the waiver wire, I think Robbie Anderson will be out there because people are scared to take that risk with him, as am I. I understand. But with 10 targets, that's crazy. That's that usage. Like you said, 20 carries with only 20 yards, I'll take it. That's receiver to get 10 targets, I'll take it. And one of those is going to go for a touchdown. This week it didn't, unfortunately, but he did end up with almost 8 points. He caught, decent amount of passes, but no touchdown. That touchdown saves everything. But that's someone that I definitely think you can go grab and with the bye week or injury be comfortable with.
Definitely, I agree. And honestly, man, like, I don't know. I don't know. It's tough because it's 10 targets, 3 catches, you know. It's like you said, it's one of those guys that is getting the opportunity so he can give you 20 points or 5.
Yeah, and Sam Darnold isn't looking amazing to me.
But he's like so up and down. One game he looks
True.
like a freaking all-pro, and the next game he looks like
Very
a rookie.
true. And that's what's about it for me, is that's why I dropped Aaron B. Anderson, is because it's so up and down. It's too much for me. But their defense is good enough to give them opportunities to get the ball in their hands. So
And they're getting down, so they need to throw
they
it.
got to
so.
pass it out at that point too, because sometimes their defense looks good and other times their defense looks so bad they're just out playing from behind like crazy.
Yeah,
So
man.
it's scary, but Robbie
Speaking
Anderson
of
at
Robbie
least
Anderson,
will get some work.
Yeah, and this Jets offense. I want to move to tight ends real quick.
Your
Chris
boy,
Herndon.
Herndon.
Who I had mentioned last week.
You talk about him a lot, but have you picked him up in any leagues?
Dude, I'm stacked at tight end in all my leagues. This year
Fair
I
enough.
made that move to draft tight ends earlier in the draft so that I didn't have to stream, and I'm so happy I did that. It's been amazing. But anyways, if you need it, there's so many people out there streaming tight ends right now. So Chris Herndon, 2 weeks in a row, scored touchdowns, over 50 yards. So, I mean, he's getting the looks. Him and Darnold are building that chemistry. Both rookies came into rookie camp together. And from the get-go, we're playing together on that second offense. And then, obviously Darnold got moved up to the first. And then with injuries, now Herndon's in the first. So I definitely think that from this point forward, there's going to be games probably where it's lower volume. But there's going to be games where he gets you. He's a red zone target. So you're hoping for those touchdowns.
One of
from
their
this guy.
few. One of their few red zone targets.
So definitely think he is one of the top tight end waiver wire ads this week. And then obviously we got your boy CJ, who
CJ
if he's
Uzomah,
still available, I mean,
which would be insane.
yeah, which would be insane.
He's clear cut the number one guy in that offense, number one tight end, I should say, with no Tyler Eifert or Tyler Croft, both the Tylers out. CJ caught a touchdown in this game, and he's just going to be a target hoarder for Andy Dalton. He's going to be going to him not only in the red zone, but just getting down the field, AJ Green has some tough matchups moving forward, so he's going to get covered quite a bit to where they're going to need to get the ball to CJ Uzomah. Tyler Boyd, though, really quick. That was a sad game last week. But anyway.
Stupid. They need to feed him the ball.
They did. It was just, not enough, obviously, but it was good defense.
They started to, but...
CJ Uzomah, if he's owned, which I doubt he is, go grab him. But he is still owned in a little bit over half the league. So
yeah, so I mean, definitely someone to go grab.
Number one tight end.
You got other tight ends you want to talk about today?
Not necessarily. I mean, there's of course going to be the Vance McDonald's out there who I don't love because there's so many mouths to feed in that offense for tight ends. But any quarterbacks you want to mention before we go?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, obviously you got Baker Mayfield and his amazing schedule coming up.
Yeah.
He's not going to light up the world, in my opinion, though. It's going to be the 20-point games, which I'll take. I'll take 20. But there's quarterbacks scoring 30 points a week. So if you're playing a quarterback scoring 30 points a week and you're getting that 20, you're losing. So
yeah, I think Baker's strictly a bye-week fill-in, for those guys that are scoring the 30, 25-plus point games.
And then obviously Joe Flacco has been pretty decent, as well, scoring 17 to 20 points as well. Bye-week fill-in, amazing schedule to finish out the year as well. So I think Joe Flacco is someone that you can trust on a bye week. And then obviously someone else that has a super easy schedule that look, up and down throughout this year. He has those good games and bad games. Mr. Eli Manning yesterday scored you 20 points?
20 points, and I said it on last podcast. This is a great matchup for him against Atlanta. I thought it would be more high scoring than it was, but still Eli actually got 20 points because of garbage time, but it is what it is. That's fantasy football. Eli Manning also has another favorable matchup against the Washington Redskins. It's at home, and they're ranked 10th. So I think Eli Manning could do pretty well. And it's that classic Odell versus Josh Norman game this week. So we'll see how that plays out. But someone else I like as well is on the other side of that ball, Alex Smith. Another guy who's probably on waiver wires, and he has a favorable matchup against the Giants. The Giants are giving up quite a few yards in the air. So I like Alex Smith. I like Eli Manning, both moving forward. And then lastly, a guy who is just an absolute either swing and miss and fall on your face, or you hit a home run. That's Brock Osweiler. It's still Brocktober.
Yeah.
So he could still have that spell on him to be making stuff happen, even with Albert Wilson and Kenny Stills down. That's what leads us to my last guy, Jakeem Grant, who I've been preaching on for a long, long time. This guy has burners like Tyreek Hill. He's just a playmaker when he gets the ball in his hand. Super elusive. With injuries, he's going to be the arguably number 1 or 2 receiver in that offense, depending on if Kenny Stills plays or not. So,
Which I don't think he is.
if he doesn't, you're talking about a Jakeem Grant who could be looking at 8 catches for 110 yards and 2 touchdowns. So you never know.
Yeah,
Just
he's
saying.
a big play guy.
He
so
is a big play guy.
We will see what
Possibly
he can
even
do.
a punt return for a touchdown too.
I
might
know.
just be
Is he
crazy,
Tyreek
but
Hill 2.0?
He really is. I really think he is. But we might just be tuning his horns a little too much. But it is still Brocktober, so that's why we're going with that.
Go Brocky. A couple defenses to stream this week. I think the most obvious is New England against the Bills.
Why would you say that?
Last week, New England actually scored a couple touchdowns, which they scored huge
Yeah.
for fantasy owners. I think 19 points or something like that.
No bigger than Denver, though.
Oh, no. Or the Rams. Rams had a really good day, 23 points.
23, but you're talking about a 30-plus
I
point
know.
game from the Broncos.
I
Are you
know.
fucking kidding me? That's insane. But I also think New England's defense is very vulnerable. And
100%.
Chris Ivory is playing them this week. I love the Chris Ivory start against the New England Patriots this week. I see touchdowns coming, which does scare me
I
about
see
that
lots
New
of
England
interceptions
Patriots.
and
That could be the case, but I think they're going to play to the New England Patriots' weakness, and that is the ground game. I think they're going to pound the rock, and then hopefully Derek Anderson doesn't have to put anything over the top because, yes, then there's interceptions for days coming. But a defense I do like coming into this week, coming off a bye week, and yes, they might be a little scary, but it's the Pittsburgh Steelers. They got a solid defense. I think they're ranked top 3 in sacks in the league this year. And like I said, they're coming off a bye week, so they're well rested and taking on a Baker Mayfield who, like you said, he's going to be up and down. He's not going to put up crazy points, but I think they have the weapons on defense to shake him up, get him on the ground, make him throw bad passes. Interceptions are coming. I could see turnovers and touchdowns for the Pittsburgh Steelers
and I
against
think
the
it's
Browns.
the weather's supposed to be raining right now. That's the projection.
Sure.
So if it's
Even
raining,
better.
woo!
Talk about some defensive scoring. I like the Pittsburgh Steelers as a defense this week, but moving forward, I don't like the long-term
They're
longevity.
like the Patriots where they
Definitely.
are vulnerable.
Vulnerable, but can also turn in multiple defensive touchdowns if need be. They have the Watt. They have the players. Hayden on the defense to make big plays. Morgan Burnett, they're going to be able to make stuff happen, so I'm excited to watch them. And if I needed a defense, I'd probably go them this week.
Yeah, then there's another game. The last defenses I should talk about. It's a game of Arizona Cardinals versus the 49ers.
Oh, God.
So it's going to be
I don't
an
want
ugly
anything
game.
to do with it.
It's going to be an ugly game, so I think that the Cardinals defense will score some points, and I think the 49ers defense will score some points. Both of them have been giving up points, but at the end of the day, both these offenses are terrible. So I don't know. This is going to be ugly if you're pretty desperate. Like right now, I'm pretty desperate for defense. If I don't get these other guys, I might roll with the Cardinals or 49ers just for the
Wow.
upside. Just because last
Cardinals.
week, the freaking Denver Broncos scored 30-plus points against the Cardinals. So why not take that shot on the 49ers hoping they scored 10, which it's definitely doable
It
with
is.
Josh Rosen and that offensive line. But they also did fire Mike McCoy. So I could see the the Cardinals coming out
With
and
a
having
whole
a great game
Good
plan.
game plan.
30 points for DJ all day, and
That's
really
what
tearing
Dylan
them
hopes
apart.
for.
So I am, and it will happen. It will happen.
Well, I hope the best for you, brother.
Thanks, man. Really appreciate it.
But if you can, go grab one of these guys we mentioned today. Obviously, this is Waiver Wire Tuesday, leading into Waiver Wire pickup Wednesday tomorrow. So everyone out there, best of luck on who you get. I hope you get them when you want them.
Excited.
Me too. I'll text you at 2:30 a.m. when
Yeah.
I'm up, playa.
All right, guys. Take care.
Over and out.
What did I do? What did I do? The league, huh?